Hi, it's Wes. And Veronica. And today it's time to talk about the PurGear 25 1.8. Hold on a second, I hear you say. PurGear isn't a lens manufacturer. Actually, you might not even know who PurGear is. They are one of the biggest photography equipment suppliers in the world. Not that they make a lot of this stuff, they just distribute it. All over the place, from China to North America. But who is a lens manufacturer? A lot of lenses these days are manufactured by third parties anyway, so I can't really fault them on pretending to make a lens, because that's just how they go these days. There are very few first-party lens manufacturers anymore. So, what do we have here? As you might expect from a bit of an upstart third party, this is a value lens. We've got a low price and as cheap as possible design. So what do we get out of that? Let's find out. We'll start with the categories. Number one, as always, build quality. Now the easiest thing for me to compare this to would be my 7 Artisans lens. This is also a high value lens. It is full frame though, so it's a little more expensive, a little heavier. So if we look at these side by side though, the 7 Artisans is clearly a more robustly built lens. It's heavier, it's thicker, things move just a little bit more nicely. This one, again, is designed more for low cost. So, although it's all metal, there is no weather sealing, you have external focusing, there's no lens hood, which is fine, you wouldn't usually expect one. The listing says that it's a 12 bladed aperture, but I can only count 10 in there. But overall, being an all metal design, this is a pretty solid lens. I wouldn't want to take it out in the rain, but it's a 7 out of 10. It's hardy. Handling. This is actually a place where this lens does better than the 7 Artisans because the focus is on the front of the lens and the aperture is on the back. 7 Artisans drove me crazy that the aperture ring is on the front and the focus on the back. When you have a very small lens like this, it's hard to get your fingers in there. So I much prefer this design. So that's easier to use. It has well damped rings, good operation. Although being this tiny does make it a little bit tricky to handle. There's not a lot to grip on here, but it's a 9 out of 10 for handling. Image quality. It's a lens. This is what we're here to talk about. Not a lot of surprises here. No, it's not amazing, but it's also not terrible. If we just want to talk about straight up sharpness, I've got some diagonals here you can look at. I've got some pictures at f1.8, f2.8, 5.6, and f16, and actually when you stop this way down to f8 to f16, it's decently sharp. Again, we're not talking about G Master sharp here. Obviously you can't expect that for a lens that cost 1/30th of a G Master, but it's fine. This is still a new lens with newer glass in it that has been carved reasonably well. The corners fall away when it's closer to wide open. There's a lot of vignetting, a lot of softness in the corners, but if you're going for more of a vintage look, this is the look that you're going to get. The hardest part that I have with this would be the color reproduction, which seems just a little bit off at times. It tends to vary from edge to edge of the frame depending on how color is bouncing around in your room. That's the hardest thing to correct for or expect. Of course, there's a fair amount of chromatic aberration, but not a crazy amount in my opinion. I have much more expensive lenses that have as much or more chromatic aberration than this. Looking at you, 55 Zeiss. Flaring, not terribly well controlled, but actually, when you stop it down just a little, it's better controlled than in this. But when you have it wide open, it's completely out of control with light wash. So this is gonna be to taste, depending on how much you like that washout. Then when you stop it down, you don't really have much flaring. Just a little bit, a very normal amount. It's reasonably predictable in that way. And I don't want to say too much about flaring right now because that's a matter of taste for character, but generally speaking for the quality of this lens, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. Which seems like a low score, but considering the price point, I think it's a high score. Image character, and that's what you want to get out of a lens this cheap. You want to have some fun with it. In some ways it disappoints a little bit, in some ways it actually surprised me. Alright, where did it disappoint? As I was saying with flaring. It's really hard to get some great artistic flares out of this. As with 7 Artisans, you can get some amazing flares, some beautiful rainbow effects. This one, yeah, it's just a little bit boring. Some people might prefer that. Some people don't want to wreck their images with tons of crazy lens flares. I like to flare a bit. I like to have a little bit of fun. But where it impresses is the bokeh quality. This really surprised me. It's surprisingly smooth. Now, it's not perfect. You got some fringing, some aberration, a little bit of onion ringing, but, overall, when taken into consideration of the entire image, it looks fantastic, the bokeh on this lens. I have no idea how they've managed to pull that off. I would really expect this lens to have very nervous rendition in out-of-focus areas, but you've got to get a very, very busy background before it gets nervous at all, and even then, it's not that bad. It's pretty smooth. This is super smooth bokeh. Again, I have no idea why though. But if you want to play around with super smooth bokeh, you might want to do some free lensing, which I like to do from time to time. This lens doesn't do a good job of that. It's probably too wide of a focal length. Once you pull it off the camera, there's only a limited amount of play that you can do. This does pretty well. It holds up for character. It's a good 7 out of 10. Autofocus. That's a 0. Value. And this is what we're looking for with this lens. Let's see how it does. So if you get this on Amazon, you're looking at about $70. If you buy it direct from PurGear, there's a link in the description for that, you're looking at $60. $60 for a brand new lens, an f1.8. That's almost shocking. What can we compare this to? Well, there's the Meike 25 1.8, which is $75. I was trying to figure out if this was the same lens rebadged, but I'm not sure that it is, because Meike says that theirs is 7 elements in 5 groups. This is supposed to be 5 elements in 3 groups. Then there's a 7 Artisans 25 1.8. Again, is that the same as one of these? That's 7 elements in 5, so maybe it's the same as the Meike, but it says it has 12 blades, while the Meike has 8, so maybe they're all 3 completely different lenses. I can only find a lens diagram for the 7 Artisans, because they're into that sort of thing, so I can't be sure. And after that, well, there's really not that much in the field. There's a bunch of much more expensive autofocus lenses, like the Tamron 24 2.8, it's $300. You got the Sony 24 1.8, it's $1,100. And that's an APS-C lens too. Eesh. Or the Sony 24 1.4, which is $1,400, but that's a G Master, and it's 4 times the size of this at least. And what I'm comparing it to here, the 7 Artisans 35 1.4, in theory it's not the same focal length, but effectively it is approximately, it's $200. I mean, nothing can beat this for value. It's a 10 out of 10, that's just the way it is. So total, that's a 37 out of 60. Not a super strong score, but what are you expecting from a $60 lens? Does it disappoint? Depends what your expectations are. If your expectations are a $60 lens, no, it doesn't disappoint at all. If your expectations are a $1,400 lens at 24 1.8 with autofocus, yeah, this is going to disappoint. But this is a lens to have fun with, to slap on your camera, save a buck, have a little bit of fun. And you can have fun with this lens. Do I recommend it? Well, that's up to you. Look at the image samples. There's more in a link in the video description. You can check out some slightly higher resolution stuff. If you decide to buy this lens for a few pennies on the dollar, use the links in the description, and that will help fund my channel, feed my family, and this cat. Yeah. So, until next time, wash your hands and go take some photos.